Love it.
Awesome. Okay, we are live. We did it. We finally have Jacy and Arthur with us tonight. Okay, real quick, I'm going to go ahead and do introductions. If you don't know me, my name is Brittany Brainstorm, and I am the owner of the creative agency Brainstorm Boutique. And my sister Casey's here with me tonight. She is a designer, very talented, and a confidence coach. And tonight, though, we are having a really great conversation with my friend Jacy and her husband Arthur. And
Hello.
They are joining us from Alabama. And you guys have quite the story to share. So I'm just excited to dig in. We're going to have a conversation I feel like more people need to be having. And so I'm going to turn it over to you guys if you want to introduce yourselves.
Awesome. So we're really excited to be here. First of all, thank you so much for inviting us, because I know it's been a long time coming that I've wanted to do this show. And I'm Jacy, and this is my husband Arthur. I'll let him introduce himself, but you're welcome. But for about, I would say, since maybe June 2017, I have been like obsessed with personal finance. And it kind of happened in a way that is bizarre and maybe God ordained, but I was walking in the park listening to a podcast, and it was like a TED Talk from a lawyer that was in her 40s that had just recently been divorced, filed bankruptcy, and was just like drowning in debt and debt that could not be discharged in her bankruptcy, including student loans. Yes. So I was, as a brand new lawyer, I was like, oh my goodness, like looking at my student loans at the time, I was like, this could be my life. So, at the time I was single, and I thought, what a great time to kind of like get my finances and just my life in order and like kind of gain some discipline in many different areas. And so that was when I started kind of researching how I could improve my finances and kind of dig myself out of this hole. So that's when it started. And I didn't really know how to do it. I just knew I wanted to do it, and I committed to it. And then over the next probably year and a half, I diligently researched how I could pay down my debt, so that I could be in a position to build generational wealth. So that's kind of how my story got started. And I'll let him introduce himself, because our story together is much deeper, obviously.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so Jacy and I actually started dating in April of 2017. So you weren't single at the time in June 2017. I'll go ahead and throw that one out there. Yeah. So hello everybody.
Go
My name is Arthur Fisher. I couldn't let it slide, because I definitely was going to talk to them about it. But yeah,
my timeline. Excuse me, guys. It's been a long day.
Right.
It's okay.
Numbers is his thing, actually.
So my name is Arthur Fisher. I am from Opelousas, Louisiana, and I work as an electrical engineer here in Alabama with Southern Company. And I guess our stories are somewhat interesting. I think we had a different mindset whenever we started dating. So, I think I'm like the typical millennial that doesn't really think about paying off these student loans. And, I knew that I would pay them off eventually, as my career progressed. But I kind of looked at it as, just kind of waiting some time. And when my salary increased, and that's when I would start, paying that off, but not thinking about the interest that will be accruing on these loans. So, I'm extremely grateful that I had met a woman with the mindset that, we wanted to, build this generational wealth, and she had her mind on straight, because, most people, they, try to impress folks with the wrong things and not really thinking about it. They're living for social media rather than living for themselves and living for their wealth. So, really overall, what else to say besides being thankful for somebody that's, just so determined to make sure that we, start off on the right foot before we get off into, building this family. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. And thanks for having us.
I just
love
want to
it.
say
Yeah.
that means so much, because the reality is, and he knows, like the sacrifices that we've made over the last however long it's been, and time does escape me sometimes. Like it's been so much longer even than it seems that we've been like really diligently paying down debt. And since February 2019, when we first took Financial Peace University, we've paid off over $119,000 in debt.
Wow.
And
Okay, I need like
it's
the
unreal.
dates, like everything. Oh my gosh.
Thank you. And it's unreal. And so like before we got married, while we were engaged, we were paying debt separately. Like we hadn't combined finances, obviously, until we got married. And so we paid it down as much as we could, so that by the time we got married, it wasn't like this huge hole. And then we used the money that we got from the wedding all on paying down debt. Like we didn't go on a honeymoon. We didn't do anything. And so I became debt free the week before my 30th birthday. And yes, thank you. So we only have a little less than 30,000 left to knock out for him to be debt free, which we anticipate being done with that by November. And so I'm really excited about both of us having paid off cars, having no student loans, because obviously we're in careers that have high student loans, although he didn't have nearly as many as I did. But I just appreciate him, talking about the sacrifices, because it has been a journey, and not a lot of people would recognize the amount of work that goes into budgeting daily.
Yes. That is so true. Real quick.
You'll definitely have two different mindsets, because Jacy is, she's strict with it, but I'm still somewhat of a free thinker whenever it comes to, not sticking to the budget. But of course, you're going to have that in any type of relationship. You're blessed if you have two people that are focused, but as long as you have one person that is strictly, on your butt every day. And I'm talking about Jacy is, she asked for every single line item that I spend. So, I'm just like I said, I can't express enough how thankful I am for someone who's so determined to make sure that we get out of this, this debt prison.
Yeah, no, for real. Cause it feels like a prison sometimes. And I mean, we're obviously in a very privileged position to have like kind of been blessed with the knowledge and the skills that we really worked to get, because it's not like we inherently necessarily had the personal finance skills. Like we don't come from really wealthy families or anything like that. But I mean, we really did do a lot of research, and he just graduated with an MBA with a concentration in finance, which has helped as well. Yes. But I think that he cash flowed his MBA out of private school. That's the other piece.
Wow.
Yes. So, I mean, it was not cheap. And yes, we budget every day. And he's right. I do. I want to know every line item, because I do want to know where every penny's going, so that we can put every bit that we worked for where it needs to go. And also that we can go enjoy ourselves. Like we're going to Mexico in August. In 2 years. Like we need to be able to do that. So.
I love that. I'm going to add something real quick. And Jacy, hearing you talk about, I feel like you and I are like on these parallel paths. Like we met, our paths intersected, like 6 years ago, and we've stayed friends. And even though we don't always get to talk all the time, like we're very supportive of each other. But I had a very similar way of finding, about the debt freedom lifestyle. And so, I'm broke as a joke, have no money saved, anything. And of course I decided to go buy me a new iPhone, right? And so I get me a new iPhone. And I had this really, really cheap, like no name smartphone from, Straight Talk or something like that. And it was fine. Like it did its job. But I didn't have a lot of access to apps and stuff on that, which sounds so silly. But here's the reality is, when I got my iPhone, the first thing I did was I downloaded podcasts, and I never listened to podcasts before then. And you would think that's like everybody listens to podcasts, right? but I hadn't, because I hadn't had direct access to them through my phone. And I started searching, which is some of you were looking at lawyer based podcasts. Well, I was looking at photography based podcasts. And I came across an episode where it was about a guy who was actually a photographer for a newspaper in Evansville, Indiana. And he used to drive through and freelance for the Southern. And when he would drive through to Southern Illinois, he would start listening to Dave Ramsey. So he ended up writing a book about freelance to freedom and how it completely changed his life.
Wow.
So I'm like, well, I want to do that, right? If he can do that, he now only works like 6 months out of the year, and then he has the rest of the year off. And because of that, then I got introduced to Dave Ramsey. So when you were talking about listening to a podcast about someone who you related to, and because of that conversation jump-started your journey, that's why I feel like it's so important to have these conversations, just regular people, because someone else is going to listen to it and go, actually, I'm in a similar situation, and now I see that it can happen, you know? So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that because, I mean, in your photography, like you've been doing it for a really long time.
Yeah.
And I know it's like a huge passion of yours and you have so many talents, but I mean, that's so funny that you got to him through that avenue as well. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely great. So tell me, when you were listening to this podcast, you're listening to this lady, like what was your thought process? Because I know we're kind of blind until we're exposed to that conversation.
Yeah. Well, first of all, like honestly, I think if I had to describe it, the best word I could describe was like lonely, because our generation, like the millennials, the ones who had like ridiculous student loan and tuition prices, all of us did feel like, oh, well, we're just going to die with this debt. Like, it really doesn't matter. I'm not paying it. God, what is it? Jesus forgave it all. Like, you know, you know, it is what it is. I mean, that's how all of us felt. And it wasn't just everyone else. It was me too. And listening to that podcast, like I heard the despair, like I heard the just devastation and the depression in her voice. And the fact that she felt like she needed to do a TED Talk about it, I thought, wow, I mean, it must be really, really bad. But then I started having these conversations with other lawyers. And I want to add that, like, in the professional sector, whether it be, you know, law or medical or whatever, I think that people are really afraid to talk about money, and they're very afraid to talk about debt, because a lot of them are trying to live up with the Joneses, because they think that if their clients don't see them, you know, in the best car and the best clothes and the best designer and the best house, they're not going to take them seriously as professionals. And so I, having heard that and kind of committing to myself that I was going to focus on digging myself out of a debt prison, I got a lot of pushback from everyone, from everyone. Now, he was very supportive, because when we started like actively seeing each other, because we were long distance for a year and a half until we got engaged, like, you know, he was very supportive about the fact that I had a budget. Like, that was what I was doing. And it wasn't until we got engaged that he did, you know, he started actively budgeting with me.
And I think it was also helpful that I was extremely frugal.
Yes.
I'm not really a spender unless it's something that I really want, maybe. And for example, if there's a basketball game during the NBA season, I'm definitely going to go to the store and I'm going to get my chips and dip every single
But it's chips and dip.
Like, it's
wild.
I respect that.
Yes.
We're here for that.
Chips and dip. And like, it's funny because, and he knows, we talk about the Mercedes. The most expensive thing he has is the Mercedes. The Mercedes is almost paid off. It's a miracle, because I thought it was never going to happen, but it is. It's almost paid off. And he'll have nearly a brand new paid off Mercedes here by November. So now, he bought the Mercedes before we started dating, like 6 months before we started dating. So
timing there, maybe.
I know. But other than that, he is not like a, gotta spend money all the time kind of guy, which I'm really blessed to have someone that's not super materialistic. But I think that for me, most people other than like my mom and my dad, who were very, very supportive, and my stepdad has always been, that's who I mean when I was referring to my dad. He has always been very frugal. And so they were very supportive, and I was living with them at the time. I'd moved back in with them. But like friends and like other family
They
and
hate
coworkers,
it.
Struggle every
They
day.
hate it. Oh my gosh, friends hate it if you do
Yes.
not want to buy that like $10 shot.
yeah,
It's insane. No, I'm not spending that much money on something that literally is like going to be a drink or something like that. They get
Yes.
so
Or go out for
mad.
lunch. Every day.
lunch.
That's
Yes.
Yes, it will be $40.
Yeah.
You're gonna spend it, and it's
Yeah.
so dumb. If
And
you
it
like make your own
adds
sandwich,
up.
it costs like nothing.
I know. And
Oh,
that's
it makes
the
me
thing.
so mad.
I agree, because in the professional world, and it doesn't matter like what your job is, like
Yeah.
when I was a server for 7 years, like if you didn't want to grab a drink and have lunch with your coworkers,
Yes.
like, I mean, that was a big deal for them. But, you know, I think that, and I still, to this day, even having been, thinking about that gift, even having been debt free, I still get people that tell me, yeah, no one ever gets out of debt. Like people still really believe that. And I'm like, hello, like
Okay.
living testimony.
Mhm.
I mean, I still have people that are like, don't believe that I did what I did, or they think that there was some magical secret. And I'm like, y'all have no idea the extra jobs we did and still do. You know, the amount of, hey, we can't go out this weekend that we've done for the last however many years, like not going on a honeymoon. We every dime we got from our wedding, we used to pay down debt. So we didn't get to like buy anything luxurious after our wedding. I mean, we made real sacrifices. So I would say loneliness was kind of like the theme I thought of when I heard her voice, and also when I have been going through this process, is just like feeling like I'm in this on my own, thankfully now with my husband. But for a very long time, I was like, oh man, this is such a lonely journey.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't give it up for the world though.
It
Yeah,
is. Oh, we got
nobody
a comment here. Real quick. First, I shared them earlier. Shauna Donovan Vaughn, she gave a thumbs up. Christy Saylor gave us a bunch of clapping emojis. Carol Greenlee, and actually Carol let me borrow her Financial Peace University CDs that I listened to work for a very long time. Carol Greenlee says, love this conversation. Awesome work. Thank you so much for watching, Carol.
Yes,
She's
thank you.
definitely like-minded, and I really appreciated her support. So so on the theme of loneliness, right? Somehow I just started talking about it. Like I didn't care who agreed with me or not. And then I started either finding like secret people who were of the same
Yes.
mindset, or
Yes.
I started having friends who were like, I want to do that. I want to join that journey. And, you know, we'd be there to support each other. You know, I had a friend who, during the pandemic, like messaged me. She's like, we did it. We are debt free. And I can't believe it happened. And I was just so thrilled for her. You know, I'm closer than I was before, but I started my journey in 2018. I'm trying to do the math. Yeah, in 2018, September 2018. And you know, it feels long, but man, it can go fast. You know, like it feels lonely, but if you pick up people along the way and you're willing to have the hard conversations with people, there's so many people who want to talk about finance, who want to talk about debt, but they don't have a safe space to do it, or they feel embarrassed, or they feel like they missed out on something, or they don't know something. I didn't know anything about this stuff.
I didn't either.
It's really self-education. It's a lot of research.
It is. You're right. And you bring up a really good point, because you and I have been in communication throughout this whole journey of like, oh, I just paid off this, and like, oh, I just did this, and been secretly kind of congratulating each other.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like there have been people along the way. Like I met a court clerk a year ago who was like, whispering to somebody that she was debt free, and I was like, oh, "Are you a Dave Ramsey follower?" And she was like, "Yes." And I was like, oh, "I'm on my debt free journey too." And like every time we saw each other, it was like, "How you doing?" You know. But you're so right. It's like this secret, because you know that people are so judgmental, which is weird. You're like, you would think people would be like, "Oh my gosh, you're like not drowning in a hole of debt. That's wonderful."
Yeah.
But they're not like that. Now, some people are. Like my current job, they are very, very supportive of this journey that I've been on. Like they are always congratulating me and cheering me on.
And I'm so thankful for that group. I don't know if they're watching or not, but I do want to say that I'm extremely grateful for the Varner Law Firm family. So let's just throw that out there.
Yeah, they are always. Yeah,
it.
they're all very frugal, and like they just really support us being on that journey. And so that's been nice to have like people applauding you along the way.
Yeah.
But you know how it is. Like most of the time, if I tell people, like, you know, it comes up in conversation like, "Oh no, we're not doing that right now because you know, we've got a goal." People are like, "You got to live your life. You're gonna die, and you're not gonna be able to do." And I'm like,
"Oh, we started it, and then we just like we had to quit because family things started coming or whatever the case is." But yeah, so it's, every time you hear that type of stuff, you know, of course you want to listen. But at the same time, you got to move away from those type of people, because if you're around negativity, then that's only going to spawn on you. So yeah, want to throw that
is so true. So Arthur, tell me, when Jacy came to you and she's like, "I'm gonna get out of debt," like I don't know how that conversation went. I know you said you were dating whenever she listened to this podcast. So what was that like for you? Like, what did you think?
Was I vocal about it in the beginning?
I don't. Well, I think I would see you post some type of social media, but I'm a laid back type of person. So, you know, if Jacy tells me something and I'm sitting back and listening and it makes sense, then I'm gonna weigh out the pros and cons. And of course, if it does make sense, then I'm all with it, because I know Jacy's really intelligent, and I know that if we you know, if we both do what we're supposed to do, then we're definitely going to accomplish whatever goal that we want to, you know, accomplish. So yeah, I didn't have any pushback. The only pushback that I do have is in my favorite store. Yeah, no, I know. The only pushback that I do have is, you know, sometimes I might go out of the budget, but it's not always extreme.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think the biggest pushback that I got from him was the Mercedes.
Oh yeah,
like I wanted him to sell the Mercedes because at the time, at the time he owed like 28,000 on it. I think it may have been a little bit more, but and that was, you know, after down a little bit and put down down payment. So to me, I was like, that is so much money. But you know, Dave says that if you could pay it off in 2 years, then you can keep it. And so when I did the budget, it showed that we would be able to pay it off in 2 years, which we didn't, because things came up. We cash flowed a wedding. We cash flowed him to go to private school for an MBA. You know, so things got in the way of that, but worthy causes. And but here it is, like we are literally months away from paying that thing off. So I did get a lot of pushback on the Mercedes. He was adamant, and I hated that thing. I mean, it's a beautiful car, but I'm not a car person.
She hates it until it's time to go somewhere.
I mean, it's cute to ride in, you know, but it just wasn't. Cars are not important to me. But Brittany, you kind of know my personality, and I think Jacy, you can relate. Like, I'm just not I'm not like I just like things that look good. I like to feel good. Like, but it doesn't have to be designer. It doesn't have to be name brand. I'm all about utility. Like, can I use this? Is this useful? Yeah. And that's my vibe. I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah. I feel like the designer things that I do have, I literally wear them all the time.
Yeah.
Like I use them. It's like, this is a substantial shoe, and I'm going to wear it till it's like completely busted open and bad. Like, I just like the really like high quality things that I know is going to hold up, because I'd rather have like one pair of jeans that lasts me 5 years than like 5 pairs of jeans in the 5 years. You know what I mean?
That's
yeah,
true.
and he's like
Have
that
to keep
too.
rebuying. Yeah.
Yes. He's like that too about some things. Like like furniture. Like he's like, we'll wait until we can get quality furniture because like he doesn't want it to
That's
break.
how I am.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I get
We have a couple comments. Christy Saylor says, "Save that money. Seeing the savings and credit score go up is pure gold." I agree. And then she commented that. Thank you for watching, Christy. Christy, she's local to me, and she actually just started her own business here recently. She's doing social media management with Social Sailor, and
awesome.
she's amazing. Christy's one of those people that like I can talk to, and we lean on each other, and it's just so important for that journey of whatever stage you're in. But so one thing I want to talk about then is, if you don't mind, I would like to talk about the numbers a little bit. I would like to talk about, what does your debt look like? Because for some people, it's like all student loans, or it could be medical bills, or it could be cars and houses, and stuff like that. What did that look like for you? And you don't have to give like the exact numbers, but like, what did that look like for you guys? And then what was your priority in paying it off? Because I think we both followed the Dave Ramsey method. There are other ways out there. I believe in self-educating. Everyone's finances are different. But what did that look like for you guys?
Yeah. So we actually, I use the Snowball like calculator, and I've been using it for many years, and I use every dollar for my budgeting. So I actually, it's amazing. I check it every morning before I get out of bed.
What is the Snowball calculator?
The debt snowball calculator is where you put all your debts in it, and it like shows you from smallest to biggest which ones to pay off first, but it also keeps track of where you started, and like every time you pay off a debt, you have to throw a snowball to like knock the debt out.
Wait, is this an app? Is this like actually a thing that
it is? So if you get the Baby Steps app, and like it's got this snowball. I wish I could show it. Let me see. It like, how do I do this? If you go in, like, this is the snowball, and you can like just throw and you just like move the snowball up to your but anyway, it's called Baby Steps, and it's linked to every dollar. But basically we started, so me personally, when I started, I had 83,000, I think. And it was a mixture of credit cards. I think I had 4 credit cards. I had a car note, a significant amount of student loans. I think like probably 65 to 70,000 in student loans. Although people would say that's low, but people have to remember, like, I joined the military because they offered 100% tuition. Like, I mean, I love my country or whatever, but like, they were offering 100% tuition.
Yeah. So, right. And thank you for your service.
Thank you. So. But I mean, like, I'm very transparent about the fact that like there was an incentive, a serious incentive for me to join the military, because I knew they were going to pay 100% of my law school tuition. Yeah. So when people are like, "Oh, you don't have many student loans at all," and I'm like, "Yeah, but I mean, I didn't just like, I had to earn that 100% tuition."
Yeah.
So, but anyway, and here I am, still earning it, I feel like. But so I had that, and then I had a trip I financed to Italy.
I remember the stories of that trip. It looked amazing. So
yes, it was amazing, but I did finance it.
Great pictures.
Then I also had LASIK. I financed on Care Credit, which everyone is familiar with Care Credit. And then I had a root canal that I had financed.
Oh boy.
So anyway, I had literally everything that you could imagine other than
credit cards,
personal loans. He didn't have any credit cards.
Strictly school and car.
He was strictly school and the car. I think he had one Best Buy credit card.
Yeah, but well,
he had one for a laptop, but we paid that off real quick. But yeah, that's what his were, and he never really, like, thankfully, was not a credit person. Praise God, because like it could have been a huge mess if he and I had been full of credit card debt. But I had actually paid off all my credit cards and the car by the time we got married. But by the time we got married, I just had a ton of student loans left. And the interest just accumulated by the day. I could see it just rocketing each day. It made me sick. Yeah. It makes me sick.
That is something like, I don't want to get in a whole debate, or wouldn't be debate, I think would be very similar thoughts, but I don't want to get a whole conversation about student loans. But the interest rate on those babies are, they're criminal. They're criminal. And, it's for the betterment, hopefully, of you in your future. But at the same time, if, it's just, that's all I can say.
It's not, though, if you went to school, if you went to law school, and then let's say you got in some sort of injury, you would have had all that debt packed with medical bills, and then it would have been for the betterment of anything. And there's no compassion law that says, wait, this was for naught. It's okay, baby. We got this.
No, you're absolutely right.
Because sometimes school doesn't help. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you go to get your master's degree in glass blowing and it didn't work out. You know what I mean?
So true, Casey. And the thing is, honestly, and I know people may hate when I say this, and a lot of people say this, college is not the end all be all. For our generation and for Gen X, the baby boomers pushed and pushed and pushed college. And if you watch Money Explained on Netflix, the episode about student loans, they talk about how education after, the landing on Mars, when they really started pushing education in the US. So the baby boomers were like, okay, you have to go to college. Yeah. And Gen X then was like, millennials, you have to go to college. But the thing is, we are now realizing that the people that are coming out of high school and working as, what do they call electrical linemen and stuff?
Yeah, in the trades.
In the trades, the people in the trades, they're making a ton of money out of high school, and they have zero student debt because they never even went to college.
Yeah.
So it may not pay off anyway. I mean, and in law, it's such an oversaturated market. Everybody wants to be a lawyer because they don't know what they want to do with their lives. That's not what you do when you don't know what to do with your life, because you're going to accumulate so much debt. And it is an oversaturated and underpaid market generally. And people just don't realize that. So that's my rant.
Hey, well, I appreciate that. That comment.
Yeah, I think
it's good to know from other people's perspectives and their actual experiences. I got an art degree, and a lot of people say don't get an art degree. But it served me well. There's still student loans and things like that I had to pay off. I did pay my student loans off. We're working on my husband's right now, so we're similar. I'm telling you, we're on the same path. And but my art degree has served me well. I think the other thing too I want to add is knowing how to leverage your degree and knowing how to leverage your knowledge, because what I have soon learned, no one wants to give you more money. No one wants you to make a lot more money. They want to make more money. They're not going to just give you a promotion. They're not just going to give you a raise. They're not just going to give you, these things. And that's, that's the way the world works. But when you are young and you're in school and you're like, oh, well, you'll keep making more and more every year and all that. Millennials, especially, we haven't so much seen that to be true. Some more than others maybe, but I think generally that moving the way up has been it's different. It depends on your industry as well. So I don't want to make any generalizations on that. But that being said, I think what's most important is that before someone does go and get a degree and get student loans, is that they really have a tuned in on what they want to be, and what they're interested in, and what the possibilities are with that degree. Because you can get something, you can get a liberal arts degree, and I always hear people make fun of liberal arts degree. Maybe you leverage it in a different way, or maybe you don't get a degree and you get you learn a skill and a trade and you leverage that in a way. For me, I just want to tell people, just don't do something to feel like you have to go along this specific path. because that's what everybody does. You know, like make sure you're in alignment with it before that. Arthur, I know she said that you are an electrical engineer. Which how was that for you? Like going to school and picking that and then deciding later on that you want to get your MBA. What was that school journey like for you? Or educational journey, I guess.
Well, actually, my parents put it in my mind to become an engineer because they saw that I was really great with math.
Nice.
You know, so I got into school and, you know, I just started broadening out and just started learning more. And then once I got into my professional field, you know, I saw the possibilities that an employee could get whenever you mix the two together. So if you can understand both the technical and the business side or the financial side of any business, then, you know, the sky's the limit for you. So that's kind of where my journey has been for the past couple of years. So yeah, that's what kind of led me on to, you know, wanting to understand both sides of the field.
Yeah, he is, you know, definitely has a serious passion about finance. And I don't even know if it's necessarily personal finance. Like personal finance is my passion. Like law is something that I feel like is my purpose, but personal finance is my passion. And so like I could talk about personal finance all day. I really could. And I love helping people set up budgets and just talking about goals and things like that. Whereas he's like such a numbers guy that he likes to see like, I don't know, like the spreadsheets and all those things related to like finance, which I don't understand. Like finance, like the actual, you know, the corporate finance or like the really technical stuff. Like I like the layman's terms. I could do a budget for anything. Like I could probably do a corporate budget if you know you gave me 30 minutes. But but you know, like I like the dumbed down, simple, you know, track your spending, adjust your budget as you need to. That's more my speed, and he's much more technical finance.
Yeah, we have a couple of comments here. Real quick, Christy said, "I love the debt snowball. It really is such a great method." And Andrea DeYoung asked, "Did you guys have a frugal first date?"
So our first date was actually at the cigar bar.
At the time, Jacy was, you know, smoking cigars, and I noticed that. So as soon as she got off the plane, and it was a late at night flight.
Yeah, it was late.
We went to the cigar spot and probably had, you know, cigar per person and maybe some whiskey.
Yeah, nice. I think we had one drink and one cigar per person. Now, mind you, though, at the time, I don't think I had even, this would have been March 2017. So I hadn't even heard the podcast by then.
Oh,
but I would say that we were still pretty frugal. Like that weekend that I flew in, we did the cigar bar. That was the first date because I was a cigar smoker at the time.
And I also knew that Jacy was a free spirit. So we went to this crawfish festival in Birmingham.
Oh, man.
And it was out in one of the state parks out here. So, you know, we walked the park.
What else did we do? We went biking.
We went biking throughout downtown Birmingham.
Paddle boating.
Love it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we did a lot of nature stuff.
Yeah.
But so
we had a comedy show later on that night.
Nice.
We did do a comedy show.
Yeah, I would say that's probably the most expensive, but really not expensive thing that we did.
But you have to remember that was like, so we were long distance. So he was trying to fit like a month's worth of dates in one weekend.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, that's a frugal thing in and of itself is to be long distance.
Yeah. Andrea just commented, she said, "I'm a sucker for a good love story." I am too. And they have the cutest one. Oh my gosh. Okay, give me the brief version of your love story, because when you share that like messenger screenshot every time, my heart like explodes.
Let's hear her tell this story because I'm curious to know what you want to say.
Anyway, so long story short, we met in 2011, like my sorority had gone to one of his fraternity events. So we had technically met back then, but we did not start dating until 2017 because I saw him at homecoming in 2016 during a step show. Like I saw him standing by the stage and I was sitting in the front row.
With the light shining, by the way.
And the light was like shining perfect. And all of a sudden we like glanced eyes and he was like all his teeth. And so
in front of a whole crowd.
In front of a whole crowd.
And I believe that there was a spotlight on you as well. It was like a spotlight on me and a spotlight on Jacy. And as soon as I saw it, was a huge Disney Mickey Mouse wave all across with a huge smile.
Yeah.
So then the whole rest of the night, he like, you know, we would like lock eyes or whatever. And so that was that though. Like nothing happened. And then the next like 6 months, he commented on every photo on my Facebook.
And she was in the St. Louis area at the time.
Yeah, he was in Texas. No, you were in Birmingham.
Yeah.
And I was living in the St. Louis, Southern Illinois area. And so he would like comment on everything. And then finally, my friends were like, girl, who is this guy? Like he has commented on every photo.
Creepy. You laughing hard like they really said that.
They didn't say that. But they were like, oh, he's cute, you know, but wow, he's obsessed. And then finally, what the straw that broke the camel's back was my mom and I were at the movie theater and, you know, all the boomers had gotten on Facebook and my mom she saw him commenting something and she was like, who's this engineer that keeps commenting on? That's all she cared about, right? Like, who's this engineer? And so I was like, oh, you know, like we saw each other at homecoming, this and that. She's like, you need to respond immediately. And so that's when I messaged him and I was like, hey, you, with a smiley face. And his exact response was, oh my gosh, my heart just dropped to the ground. I've been thinking of what to say to you for the past week. And that was it.
Oh.
And here we are.
I had to like, you shoot a shot.
It's so cheesy, but yes.
You show up for your girl before she's your girl, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, I love that. And Christy Sala just said, oh my goodness, you guys are that's so true. Okay, I'm in love with it. So, okay, so I really want to talk about, working together as a team and paying off debt. Because when you're doing it alone, it does feel, and okay. I don't want to discourage any singles either because it all can be done, right?
Yeah, it's actually easier to do it alone though.
Yeah. You know, yeah, because there's our opinions and things like that happens, you know, when you do work as a team versus you're on your path and you're like, this is my goal and I'm getting it done. So, okay, tell me that. What did you feel like was the difference before you guys got married? Like, doing it on your own and then whenever you merge together both your finances to do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, full disclosure, and he knows this, it was much easier to do it by myself. And I tell all my single friends or single people that I know, do it now because when you get married, it is so much harder. Like, because you're taking into consideration things like a mandatory date night at least per month. And, you know, it's hard to do just a $50 date night every single month. Like if you go out to eat, I mean, you might spend $50 going out to eat with 2 people or more.
Yep.
Yes.
It's fast.
So, I mean, I feel like when you're single, you have the ability to, like, you're the only one holding yourself accountable. When you're married, you're holding 2 people accountable. 2 people are being accountable for one purpose, and you're not always seeing eye to eye, like you said. And not only that, but like the amount of work that goes into managing 2 people's expenses in one budget is a lot of work, but it's necessary because if you want to reach goals together, you have to do it that way. You just do. And you can try it other ways, but you're never truly going to be on the same page. And so it is so much more work to do it as a married couple because you're doing it for such a bigger benefit than yourself. Like everything we do is not just for me. It's not just for him. It's not just for us to go to Mexico in August. Like one day we want to have a family. And so people don't realize, they're like, what are you doing all this for? Like all these sacrifices. It's so much.
It's got to start somewhere.
Yeah, it's so much bigger than me. It's bigger than him. It's bigger than us. Like we're trying to one day, God willing, start a family and not have to feel like we're living paycheck to paycheck, which is how the majority of the country lives. And so, I mean, I don't know. I think that do it while you're single. Like, and when I say single, I mean not married, because you know, until you're married, technically you're single. So I just, you know, I just want to encourage people to focus on those things while you're single. Focus on you and doing what's best for you. And, you know, you don't have to think about anybody else. I know you may think you do, but you really don't. Like, you can focus on your goals on your own at that time. And then when you get married, hopefully you marry someone that's on the same page with you, and then you join together and you can accomplish wonderful things. Because the reality is, like, one of the huge benefits of marriage is, number one, maybe a 2-income household, which, as many people know, is such a blessing. But number two, even if it's not a 2-income household, you know, your partner may be providing a service, you know, that is worth as much as a 2-income household would be, like a stay-at-home mom. Like a stay-at-home mom, that's an invaluable service.
That's so true.
It really is. But, you know, I think that there's so many benefits to marriage, but obviously it has its challenges because everybody's their own individual person. So anyway, I guess I just want to say, like, if you're single out there, that is the best time to get your finances in order, because you can knock out so much. And then by the time you get married, you've either already paid it all off and you can pay it forward and help your spouse pay it all off, or, you know, reach their financial goals, or you both pool together your incomes. And like Arthur and I, we both have part-time jobs, and I mean, we were able to, like, knock it out between both of our incomes. So
and also for the single people, to keep in mind that it's important to have this conversation before you get married.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Talk about money. I personally, like, I think people should be talking about money within the first 3 dates. Like, what, like notice if people tip. You know, like, I mean, you know, talk about those things. Like, that stuff is really, really important, because money, and as a divorce attorney, obviously, like, full disclosure, the number one issue I see, more than infidelity, more than anything in these marriages that end, is money problems. I mean, constantly. And a lot of the time, it's a butterflies head over heels situation, which is why they got married, and they weren't thinking about, okay, this is a business. Like, when you get married, that is a very contracty business legal decision. There's so many more benefits than just love and romance. I mean, you are making that's one of the best financial decisions that you can make sometimes, and not just by marrying wealthy. I'm talking about by marrying someone that's got similar goals to you. So I don't know. I feel like you have to have those conversations early on, because if you get married and you're like totally unequally yoked, so to speak, about your finances and other things as well, it could leave room for disaster. For sure.
We have another comment here. This is back from, you know, talking about whenever you want to have kids and things like that. Andrea says, and childcare is so expensive. That is so true. That is something that, you know, when I don't have kids, you know, but I hear my friends that do, like, how much of their paycheck sometimes does go to childcare. So when someone could work from home or be stay at home, like, they are doing a service, you know, a skilled service. It is your child, but, you know, there are professionals who do that too. And when you're staying at home with your family, like, you're providing a valuable service to your family doing that. So that is so true.
That's why I tell people too, like, not to talk about divorce too much, but like, we have tons of people that, you know, like, talk down on stay-at-home parents, and I'm like, and I know with COVID, a lot of that has changed. Like, the roles have definitely changed for a lot of people. Like, he's a stay-at-home husband right now because he works from home, but it is an invaluable service that stay-at-home parents provide. And if you're in a situation where one person makes enough money to allow the other person to stay home with the children, like she said, like, childcare is so expensive that when you run those numbers, it may be more affordable for you to have someone stay at home. And then not only that, but you've got someone who's staying at home and, like, cooking all your meals. So you're saving money, not having to eat out all the time.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think that those are things that you definitely talk about before marriage too. Because even if children are not in the near future, like when we got married, we weren't thinking like, oh, we want to have kids right away. Like we're still trying to enjoy being newlyweds. But you know, those are conversations that people should have. Like me personally, I could not be a stay-at-home mom only because, again, I feel like my purpose is law. So like, unless I can do law at home, which I probably could to an extent, that's just not for me. But it doesn't mean that I don't respect the people that make that sacrifice, because it really is a sacrifice.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. One thing that I want to talk about is, you know, talking about building generational wealth, because when we talk about having kids and having families and that sort of things, you know, for some of us that don't already have generational wealth per se, maybe built up in, you know, our families and such, like that is a decision we get to make. Like, do we start that? Do we stay where we are? Because if we use our money right and we can't, you know, we take care of our money well, it can last beyond our lifetime. So I know, you know, that's one of the things you said in your bio whenever you sent that to me. What does that look like for you guys? Like, what is your dream? Like when you feel like you're on solid ground and you have your family, like what does that life look like, you know, 50 years down the road even?
Yeah, do you want to take that one? I know what mine looks like. So our allergies are killing us.
Yeah, I'm struggling right now.
It's
Well,
hard
thank
here
you
too.
for struggling through it with us.
Yeah, I got them on the neti pot today. I'm sure some viewers are like, oh, the
no,
neti pot.
you do have them bad then. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So we're gonna be doing that religiously from this day forward. But
well, we'll try to wrap it up so you don't have to suffer too long.
Yeah, you're fine. He's got his teeth. So we like for me, and I'm sure for him too, like I have always wanted to like be in a position where down the line we're able to travel the world and take our kids with us, like not have to like leave them, you know, like, oh, we're going on a date cruise and, you know, we can't take the kid, like we're going to leave. Like, I think it's really important for kids to like be exposed to international travel early, because number one, like that exposure to cultures, like I think just matures you and gives you a lot of life wisdom early. But that's kind of my, within the next 10 to 15 years goal, is to be in a position where like we have mentors that take like 3 to 4 international trips a year. And so and they take their kids and like their families. And that is like, again, invaluable. I mean, those experiences, that's much more important to me than material things, is like experiences, travel. So that's a big motivator for me generationally, is for like, I want my kids to be able to see the world in a way that I'm just now about to at 30 years old. But also I think that I want to be in a position where like, no matter where my kids live or my grandkids are, like if my kids call and say, hey, like I need you here, I whatever, like we can just pick up and go. And that I'm not working like late in my old age. Because one thing that I love to see is like my parents retired, traveling and enjoying their life. Like that's a huge motivator for me to get my act together and to, you know, start getting in a place where I can invest heavily. So,
yes.
That's where I come in.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So he's all about the investments. But I think that, like the other thing I would just add is that like I do a lot of probate work, and I have realized that in doing that work, a lot of people lose their wealth at the end of life. So, you know, protecting their land at the end of life, protecting their land after they die. I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but a lot of people lose their land during tax lien sales and, you know, just situations where they've depleted all their assets going into the nursing home. And we lose as a community so many of our assets at the end of life stages because we don't have certain things in order, like long-term care insurance and life insurance. You see GoFundMe's every week pay for somebody's funeral because they don't have life insurance. And so generational wealth to me means, you know, I can pass the land down to my children without my children having to fight for it, you know, fight other people at auction for it. That it's just protected, because we see that all the time, especially in minority communities, that, you know, at the end of life, it's gone because they've depleted all their assets by the time they die. And so that's generational wealth to me, is not just creating the wealth, but protecting the wealth, having the offensive and heavy on the defensive. That's what it means to me.
Wow, that's some really good stuff, because a lot of that stuff that I don't really even think about at this point, and that you're seeing on a daily basis.
Yes.
In your world, and a lot of us, it's just kind of out of sight, out of mind. We'll deal with that one day, you know, kind of situation. So for anyone who's listening and they might be like, oh, my debt's too big, my income's too small, this is too much, like this is why I'm not doing it right now. What do you want to say to them? What would you encourage to them to, what are the steps they should take, right? Like, from your perspective, with you guys so far in your journey, like, what would you tell them to help them get started?
Yeah. Just to get started.
Yeah. Well, get started. But as far as the exact steps, number one, you have to commit, right? Like you have to commit to like getting started. But number two is know the numbers. So you can't really start until you know what the numbers are. So a lot of people, especially like in my classes, were terrified to look up what their student loan number actually.
That is scary.
Was. It is. It's very scary. But a lot of people have no clue how much debt they owe. So I get questions all the time in my inbox. They're like, where do I even start to find how much debt I actually have? And I'm like, well, I mean, you can pull your credit report. That's a great place to start. Another great place to start is to go dig out all that mail that you throw in like your back corner. That's like collection agency mail, right? That's a good place to start too. The other thing I would say is that, so once you know your numbers, so like for me, that was a devastating moment. I remember I cried. He and I started at 152 combined, 152,000. So that was a lot. And that's what I mean by like, when you get married, that's a wake up call. You know, that's y'all's debt now. But so that's number two is know the number. Number three, I would say, is get on a budget. Like without a doubt. I don't care if you got it paid off or not. Get on a budget and make it a lifestyle. It's not a diet. Like this is absolutely a lifestyle. I've done it for almost 4 years now, where even before I started debt snowballing, I just budgeted every day. And some people budget once a week. Like my stepdad, he budgets once a week, the old school way on paper. For me, I have the app, that Every Dollar app. It's a free app.
I love that app.
It is. And if you want to track your transactions automatically, you can get the premium. I think it's like $100 a year. It's totally worth it because it links to your accounts. You drag in the transactions as they come in. And get on a budget. A great place to start would be Every Dollar. Use the desktop version if you want like a really easy, quick fix way. And make it a habit. Make it like drinking water, that, you know, have a routine that you check your budget at this time during the day. And it doesn't take long. You're just updating it to track certain expenses. The next thing I would say is for your problem spending areas, like eating out or clothing, start utilizing cash, because it does psychologically hurt to release cash from your wallet, from your hand, whereas swiping is psychologically so much easier. And I know that's something that Dave Ramsey says, but it's very, very much true. I mean, I will hold on to my cash as long as I can. So where's my card? I'm like, okay, you know, but just do that for your problem areas, the ones that you're like, because the thing is, once you like, say you allot $50 for restaurants every month, once the $50 is gone, it's gone. Like
You're done.
you look in there, you see you got $2. Well, it looks like you're not eating out. You're gonna have to cook at home.
Mhm.
But I would say that. I think that's like number 4. And then lastly, you just have to have the mental fortitude and discipline to stick with this. Because the thing about this journey, and Brittany, you know, girl,
Yeah.
once you pay off all the little stuff, you're like, you're on this high. You're like, oh my gosh, this feels so good. And then as you start to get to the $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 loans, that hurts. I mean, because they sit for a while, and you lose like the mental high, like the serotonin that you were getting when you were paying off the little ones over and over.
Yes.
So stick with it, because I remember exactly what it felt like to be on a $14,000 loan that was going to take me months to pay off, months and months. I'm talking about months.
Yeah.
Especially before I got married, and feeling so discouraged that it would not get paid off, and watching the interest just every day, you know, just shoot up. So you've got to stick with it and know your why. Like remind yourself of your why. Why am I doing this? And just keep going. That's the best thing I can say as far as sticking to it, because again, it's not a diet.
Yeah.
You can make it a lifestyle. It doesn't intrude on your, I mean, I work 2 jobs and have a husband and still have a social life and play tennis and garden and do all these other things. And I make 5 minutes a day for me to look at my budget.
Yeah.
It's not intrusive on my life, and it's only bettering my life. So I would say those are like, that's how you get started. And then once you've done kind of like those 5 steps or 6 steps or whatever, you just keep going. You keep going, and you find a community like Brittany and I, and Casey, I'm sure
here to
you're on
talk
the
about
same
it all the
too.
time.
Yeah, like you find a community, and it may be a little secretive community that, you know, you're like DMing each other. That's okay.
Yeah.
But there's a bunch of weirdos like us out there. So
There are.
we're just hidden a little bit.
The secret society.
Yes.
Well, you know, it's just, I feel like at first I was kind of like embarrassed and kind of a little ashamed, and you feel like, you know, you didn't have that secret sauce that everyone else seemed to have. And then the more I started talking to people, I realized this is common. Like, this isn't just me. This is people of all different types of backgrounds and all different types of situations. And, you know, and sometimes people who made more money had higher debt than I could even imagine, because, you know, that spending, you know, kind of snowballs. And then there's people that are doing amazing, you know, but if people aren't having these conversations on like, oh, how I'm doing, how I'm getting over these hurdles, or how I've set myself up for success, then we're kind of flailing around, figuring it out, not figuring it out, you know, whatever. Everyone's in different places. But, you know, to me, I'm just like, I just want people to not feel ashamed or embarrassed of debt, to not feel like that's it, I'm done. Like, I mean, when you hear of stories, you know, of people that, you know, felt like there was no way out, and unfortunately there were tragic endings to their life because of that. It's like, you know, there can be, and there, you know, there are different ways, you know, to get out of these things. I know, you know, bankruptcy, and I'm sure you see that kind of stuff through the law side of things. But if people, you know, are able to just really be aware. And I think that's the biggest thing, is one, having a strong mind to look at where you're at, and then having a strong mind to say, okay, this doesn't define me, but I'm going to overcome this. And then be able to go to work and make the money, and however way that is, whatever their talent is, whatever their skill set is, and their passion to bring in income. I think a lot of people, we can forget that it's the income, you know, that makes the difference in the whole grand scheme of things. You know, it's having that money come in and how you allot it and how you split it up, because even I didn't realize where all my money was going until I did that every dollar, just staring you right in the face. Like, I remember I told myself, like, the first 3 months I was on every dollar, I was like, I'm just going to record. and I'm just going to see
Yeah.
the truth.
Yes.
And I still can go back and look at September 2018, and I'm like, no, Brittany, what were you thinking? And I wasn't going crazy, but it's just things in life, that accumulate and pop up.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. All of that is so important, because you're right. Like this we know after the recession, especially 2008, we all kind of know someone or know someone that knows someone that took their life after the recession. And we have to start talking about money in a way that normalizes and destigmatizes debt.
Yeah.
And talking about it in a way, again, like you said, that we're just unashamed. People probably think I'm nuts that I'm so vocal about, like, kind of just how reckless I used to be and careless about it, and how maybe that's why I'm so strict now, because I, and I'm like, I've matured, obviously, like that was many years ago, but I am very open and transparent about it, because I see people that still feel that way, and I can relate. Like, I can totally relate to that. And when someone hears your story, that you were there and you had the same thought process, it makes your story relatable, and then they want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I've had, honestly, this person may be watching this, but 6 months ago, I had posted something about like a debt-free situation. Like, I would see people that were becoming debt-free, and I would post, me, I like, congratulations, that's awesome. I post it. And someone was like, why are you like flashing these like, like privileged people paying off all this debt when there's people that are never going to pay their debt off? And I'm like, okay, we had a conversation about it and how I felt about it and how hard I was working to pay mine off. I wasn't debt-free at the time, obviously. And sure enough, like a few weeks ago, I got a DM that was like, okay, if I wanted to start paying off my debt, where would I start?
Yes.
And so, like, I really do believe, though, like, even though that person probably thought I was the most annoying person in the world, and I'm sure there's tons of people that do. I'm sure that there are tons of people that are like, shut up. Like, are you obsessed with money? No, I'm not. But I don't want to be a slave to it either. And I don't want to be a slave to owing people either. So I think talking about it is the biggest thing. Like, let's destigmatize talking about money. We have to talk about it. But also, like you said about the income, live below your means. Like, we've got to start, I use the champagne on a beer budget thing. Like, you've got to start acting your wage, as Dave says, and learning to live below your means, because there's nothing wrong with being lower class, middle class, whatever. Like, who cares? Are you a good person? Are you contributing to society? Are you happy at home? Like, are you content? Do you have gratitude? And learning gratitude will take you a long way. It'll encourage you to live below your means. So I just want to encourage people to just like, don't let social media make you feel inadequate.
Yeah.
Do you, boo. And, just don't let anybody make you feel inadequate or less than, because you got to do what's best for you and your family.
Yeah.
So
amen to that. And I'm going to add from like the budgeting perspective, because personal finance is personal. Everyone's budget is different because everyone's priorities are different, right? Like Arthur wanted his Mercedes, so he has that in the budget, right? And someone, for them, going on a trip may be a big thing. So they have a sinking fund where they're allotting certain dollars to that to be able to cash flow it. And those are the things, like, I try to not judge other people's, how they do what they do, because I don't know their situation. All I can know is, if someone asks me like my opinions, or they want, to talk to someone who's really big into budgeting and help them, I will always, do that. But then at the same time, it's like, you have to live your life and be happy at the same time. But you have to do it in a very mindful way where it doesn't derail your goals.
Yes.
And I'll add a side note. I've been diligently putting money aside, and I'm finally going to take my first big trip. Me and Casey are. But again, all of that was budgeted, like that I can go on that trip, and that trip is not going to put me in debt. And that trip, could I have used that money for some, for the rest of those student loans? Yes. But I will also say burnout is real.
Girl.
And I told my husband, I was like, I have to go on this trip or I'm going to quit. Like, I'm literally just going to quit everything.
No, that's real. That's real, Brittany. I think that you bring up a great point, because this year we've got so many trips planned. Like, we've got Mexico, we're going to Florida for 2 weeks.
Good.
Like, we've got a bunch of stuff planned also, because, and you're right, like, we could have slapped that on the Mercedes or slapped that on the student loans. But after 2020 went the way it went, and the first half of 2021, like, you're right, we're cash flowing the trip. We're not taking out any debt. We've budgeted for it. I have no regrets about, or any second guesses about, taking this trip that we absolutely deserve to take. So
I'm so excited for you guys.
I'm excited for you guys.
Congrats.
That's awesome that you guys are going to take a sister trip. And my mom and I are taking a trip in August. Like, you've got to make that time for you and look at your priorities and see what's important to you, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. It's a hard enough life. It's a judgmental enough world. But the important thing is that you are aware of your situation. You are aware of the money that's coming in and going out, and that you are doing the best that you can to achieve those goals yourself, because it's absolutely possible to do it. I'm a big, and maybe that's what Brainstorm Boutique is about. It's just about goals in general. It's like, you have to decide, what kind of life do I want to live, and what are those steps that I take to get there. And we do live in a world where sometimes we feel like we don't have any control over our lives and our futures, but we can, and we can have small incomes and do big things. We can have big incomes and do small things. Like, it's really on you and what those goals are for yourself, and the work that you put forward on that. So I don't want to take up any more of your time. I know we've actually got over quite a bit over an hour, but I really appreciate you guys taking time out of your busy lives and schedules to have this conversation with me and Casey. I've really been looking forward to it. I'm so proud of you two. And I know I just technically met Arthur for the first time tonight, but I feel like I've known you for years, because I've been following along your guys' life. And I seriously, when I saw Jacy end up with this person who makes her smile every day, it really made me so happy. So you guys are a wonderful, wonderful team, and you're doing big things. Is there anything else you guys want to add before we sign off? That, any final words about all of the things we discussed?
Excuse me. Well, I just want to say, number one, thank y'all so much for having us on the show, but and facilitating these conversations just generally as often as y'all do. I think it's super important what you're doing. And I'm very excited about all these projects that you guys are working on. It's so important. And lastly, like, if anybody has any questions about personal finance or wants to ever talk about personal finance, you can follow me on Instagram, jacy.fisher, jacy.fisher. I'm on Facebook also as Jacy Fisher. But like, if anybody ever wants to connect about personal finance, like, we're down. Like, I love talking about it, and I want to be helpful. I want to be a steward of all this knowledge that I've researched and accumulated over the last few years. And I still have a lot to learn. So if you've got insight, share it with me.
Absolutely.
And for me, just like Jacy said, thank you all for allowing us to be on this show. But primarily, just don't be afraid to start. And there will be times where, you're going to veer off. But it's really important, as been mentioned throughout this whole podcast, to, just to continue to remember what that end goal is. And, just keep pushing. I think it's like everything else in life. You may get discouraged, but it's really important to just kind of sit back, reflect about what you want to do, and just continue to push. So, thank you all once again. And, it was great meeting you too.
That's great.
Great to see you guys.
You guys have a good night.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Y'all too. Bye.
Bye-bye.